Hey, Hub City, we've been in this series titled Slaying Giants. And today we're going to be talking about slaying the giant of criticism. Come on, criticism can really hurt, especially if it comes from people that we deeply admire, people that we love, people that are close to us. It's like a dagger just, ugh, it's like, how could you do that to me? It's interesting, though, that compliments, when they come our way, we're like, come on, bring those on. We love those compliments. You can get 20, 30, even 50 compliments, and then somebody gives you one word of criticism, and we can totally spin out of control. We can be up at night thinking, hey, well, what did they mean by that? And what they don't like what we're doing? And it could lead us down this path, really, that is terrible, all because of this simple word called criticism. We need to learn how to slay this thing. Why? Because criticism can steal your momentum. It can squeeze the life out of your dreams. Because see, criticism is rooted in disapproval. And see, and God has hardwired you and I for approval. God wants us to know that he approves of us. God wants us to know that he loves us. As we enter into a relationship with him, man, he lavishes us with his love. He lavishes us with his approval. And so when we live with that approval, man, like things are great. But if you've lived a life full of criticism, if you lived a life of being told that everybody disapproves of you. Listen, maybe you were raised in a home where you had a parent that was verbally abusive. Maybe you were bullied as a young child. Maybe you're one who that your ex or your spouse now or your in-laws, a boss, a coworker, maybe another family member, they have criticized you repeatedly. What it does, it creates a void in your heart. You need that approval. But yet all you have gotten is disapproval. People being upset with you. You made the wrong choice. You wore the wrong thing. You said the wrong thing. You sang that funny note. You messed up on the job. You cost us tons of money. And when you have that negative feedback constantly coming back, it does something to you. See, people that live a life where they know that they're approved of, they walk with a boldness and a confidence because they know that people are behind them. But people that have experienced a lot of criticism, they feel as though they can't do anything right. And what it does, it causes them to sink back instead of boldly move forward. It's almost like the pole position for those of our racing fans out there, those of you that love NASCAR, IndyCar. See, when somebody qualifies first, they get to be at the head of the pack. So they start the race with clear track in front of them. I'm going to tell you, you race differently from the front of the pack than you do in the back of the pack. See, when you're at the back, all you see is obstacles. You see other cars, and how am I going to get around these people? And can I even, move up a couple spaces? And am I even going to finish this race? And see, and that's what criticism does to us, is that it takes you from first place, and then somebody starts knocking you down. Then you're in second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. And before you know it, you feel as though you're at the back of the pack, and you begin to lose motivation. Instead of being full of hope and, I'm going to win this time, you're going, man, are we just even going to finish? See, so criticism can have a deep negative impact on your life, and we need to hit this giant head on. Why? Because God has an incredible plan for you, my friend, and we're going to figure out how to get there today. So we're going to slay this giant of criticism by understanding how to handle it. So today I'm going to take you to this little-known story in 2 Samuel chapter 16, verse 5 through 13. And we're not going to bounce around too much. We're going to stay right here for the most part, and we're just going to dig out some treasure, some nuggets from God's word. I hope that you're excited about this because I am. So if you would, go with me to 2 Samuel chapter 16. We're going to pick up this story. It says, as King David came to Bahurim, a man came out of the village cursing them. It was Shimei, son of Gera, from the same clan as Saul's family. So let me just stop there for a moment. Saul was the previous king, okay? And now David is king here. And this guy does not like King David. Why? Because his family took over. So here he's going to start throwing out some criticism. He's going to do some crazy stuff. So let's continue. So in verse 6, it says, he threw stones at the king and the king's officers and all the mighty warriors who surrounded him. Get out of here, you murderer, you scoundrel, he shouted at David. The Lord is paying you back for all the bloodshed in Saul's clan. You stole his throne, and now the Lord has given it to your son Absalom. At last you will taste some of your own medicine, for you are a murderer. I think this guy doesn't like him. And often, criticism will want to take us back to who we were instead of who we are, right? And people sling insults. Well, this guy does not like King David, and he's letting him know. But look what happens in verse 9. Why should this dead dog curse my lord, the king? Abishai, son of Zeruiah, demanded, let me go over and cut off his head. So one of David's guys is like, hey, let me go smash this dude. I'm going to go smoke him right now. But here's King David's response. No, the king said, who asked your opinion, you sons of Zeruiah? If the Lord has told him to curse me, who are you to stop him? Then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, my own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. And perhaps the Lord will see that I am being wronged and will bless me because of these curses today. So David and his men continued down the road, and Shimei kept pace with them on a nearby hillside, cursing and throwing stones and dirt at David. Isn't this interesting? A little bit of background here is that King David had a falling out with his son Absalom. His son secretly undercut him, took his kingdom from him, and now is pursuing David and his men and wants to kill them. Talk about being at a low point in life, right? You got some family drama, you got some problems going on, and you're running from your own son. Not only that, King David at this point has lost everything that he's worked for. He's lost everything that he's fought for. Everything that was important to him, it's gone. And here he is with this gang of guys, and they're on the run while his son is in hot pursuit. And they find themselves coming through this area, and you got this crazy guy on a hillside that's walking parallel with them, chucking rocks at him, throwing dirt at him, and hurling insults and curses at him, criticizing him, drudging up his past, and even says that God is not on your side anymore, that God is against you, that God is paying you back, and you're going to taste your own medicine. So this guy's really coming against him really strong. And see, when it comes to criticism, often you are going to experience it at your lowest points. That it's going to hit those areas of deficiency in your life. That those areas that you're insecure, often people are going to criticize you there. Trust me, the enemy's going to bring people to attack those spots. Those things in your past that you're not proud of, he's going to want to drudge those things up and bring them back to the surface to make you feel bad about yourself. As God has forgiven you, he's going to want to bring things right before your eyes to make you question, did God really forgive me? Because I don't feel forgiven. See, often that criticism is going to bring that feeling of disapproval into your life. And it's going to want to deflate your dreams. It's going to want to take away that power that God has put in you to overcome. And see, Shimei, he's attacking David when he's at his lowest point. And see, that Shimei spirit's going to show up in your life and in my life as well at times. It's going to be that voice that's inside of your head that is hypercritical about yourself. Shimei is going to show up through others who are critical of you, that every time you step up to do something great, maybe you're trying to raise your family in the fear and admonition of the Lord. You're saying, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. But you got family members around you that are always critiquing you. Why are you raising your kids like that? Why are you giving money to a church? Why are you serving? And you will be attacked and criticized over and over from the outside, especially when you feel like you're all alone, when you feel like you're at a low point. And others, you're going to have to deal with that critical spirit that has risen up in you. And you find yourself criticizing others consistently because they don't live up to your standards. You raise the measuring stick and they all fall short of it. And I believe that God wants to root that out of us today if we're living with that. That we don't want to be attacking people when they're at their low point. We want to be lifting people up. So I have 5 things that I want to share with you today out of this passage that are going to help us slay this giant of criticism. Number 1 is that you have to know this, that haters are gonna hate. That haters are going to hate people. And, like we've said before, haters are drinking that haterade. They got a 2-for-1 special at AM, PM, and you got people just buying it by the truckload. Just bring in the hate, especially when you step up to do something great. People are going to rear their head, and they're always going to weigh in with their opinion. They're going to weigh in with their criticism of what you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it. They're going to question all of these things. And what is it for? It's to get you to slow down and to stop pursuing the things of God. Listen to what Luke chapter 6, verse 26 has to say. It says, "Woe to you when all men speak well of you." See, some of us, we don't realize we're living for the approval of men, and so criticism really takes you out at the knees. Because we can't stand the fact that not everybody loves what we're doing. We can't stand the fact that not everybody's standing on the sideline just cheering, go, 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 you're awesome. No, there's going to be people that hate. And that's why the Bible says here, woe to you when all men speak well of you. So what the Bible is trying to say, here's the announcement that if everybody likes you, if everybody agrees with you, you're not doing this thing right. That when you are taking big risks for God, often there's going to be naysayers. And you just have to know that they're there. You have to kind of embrace it and go, okay, I know that I'm doing what God told me to do, and not everybody's going to be excited about it. That's okay. But many of us, it's really hard to power through that. We have a hard time when not everybody's approving of what we're doing. But we have to work through it. And see, often people are going to be most critical when you're living their dream, or they feel that you're encroaching on their dream. They feel threatened with that. And see, there's no difference with Shimei here. See, Shimei was in the lineage of Saul. So he was royalty until King David took over. And you can see that throughout his life, I'm sure that bitterness and resentment began to build up in his life because he's thinking, I should have had access to the palace. I should have been living in that place with all the fine foods and living this life of luxury. That was mine, and David stole it from me. So now his bitterness and resentment is about to come full vent as he's throwing rocks, dirt, and hurling curses at him in this moment, because he's jealous. But the truth is that David never did steal his kingdom. He never did steal the throne. That was God's decision. Saul was living a life in rebellion against God, and God removed him. And he gave David, the one who he says is a man after his own heart, he gave him the throne. And we see here, though, that David is in a low spot. And that Shimei is taking this moment when David's at his lowest to now attack him. And one of the interesting things is that we see that he's up on a hillside. Shimei is up in this place, an elevated spot. And often you're going to find that your haters, that they're going to come at you as though they have the moral high ground in your life. That they're looking down on you. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, I'm already here and you're trying to come up to my level. And that you feel that criticism coming from a high place down upon you. They want to come at you with your past, and that's exactly what Shimei did, is he's attacking David in his past, that God is against you, that God's no longer on you, that your best days are behind you, not ahead. God's done with you. You're in ruin. You're a wreck. You've lost everything. You've got nothing to look forward to. And he's just speaking down to him. And see, a critical spirit is always looking for people's weaknesses. It's always looking for their faults, and it hits them when they're at their lowest point. It's like a bullying spirit. It exaggerates everyone's flaws while refusing to see their strengths. And another thing that's interesting about him being on that hill and throwing these rocks at him is that people that are operating with a critical spirit, they very rarely will be able to come into confrontation where it's close quarters, that they want to throw stones from a distance. And that's exactly what he did here. He had no intention to reconcile with David. He had no intention to draw close to David. That Shimei's point was that from a distance, he wanted to inflict maximum damage, maximum pain and punishment toward him. And you'll find that often that haters around you, that is their approach. They're not close to you. They stand at a distance. They stand behind a keyboard on Facebook or Instagram. They stand at a distance gossiping about you behind your back. They stand at a distance. It's always at a distance. It's not that Matthew 18 kind of confrontation where it's face to face, brother to brother coming together, hoping to reconcile and make things right. No, it's people hurling insults and criticisms from far away. And that's how you can know that it is not of God. The other thing that was interesting too is that Shimei decided to speak on behalf of the Lord. He started saying, God's not on your side anymore. God's not with you. God's against you. But God didn't say that. That was Shimei. And some of us, how many of you have ever been beat up in the name of the Lord? You guys know exactly what I'm talking about. That there will be people that will criticize your movements and criticize the things that have been done, but they don't fully understand what's happening. That they can't see the work that God is doing on the inside of your heart. And that maybe the fruit of righteousness hasn't manifested on the outward, but then they want to criticize you because you're still smoking. They want to criticize you because you're still, maybe you got a little bit you got high school words flowing out of your mouth, and they want to challenge you and criticize you based on the outside, but not seeing that God is doing a beautiful thing inside. Listen, be wary, especially when you find yourself at a low spot of criticism, because there will be haters out there. Number 2 is that criticism will reveal who is for you. See, as these curses are being hurled, rocks are being thrown, dirt's being thrown, David is surrounded by his men, his officers, and his warriors. And in verse 9, it says this: "Why should this dead dog curse my lord, the king? Abishai, son of Zeruiah, demanded, let me go over and cut off his head." See, here's the thing is Abishai could have, without question, gone over there and wrecked Shimei. See, according to scripture, Abishai was a crazy, awesome warrior. It says that he killed 300 men with one sword. So listen, to go over there and handle this dude that's throwing rocks, it would have been nothing for him. And he wants to go over there. He's like, come on, just give me a green light. Come on, let me go, David. Let me go, King David. Come on, let me at him. Let me at him. I'm going to go get him. And it's interesting because you can see the loyalty factor. That when they began to come against King David, his men rose up to say, no, not on my watch, man. I got his back. I got his back. We love him. We're for him. We're on his side. And the same thing's going to happen to you. That when criticism comes your way, especially when it's surrounding, false accusations or people that don't really understand the nature and your character, often people that don't really care, you're going to turn to your left and to your right, and you ain't going to find anybody there. But you will find those that love you, those that believe in you, those that are standing in faith with you. They will still be there. And you know what? Criticism often is a gift because it's going to help you understand who's really with you and who's not. And see, the loyalty factor came into effect. I love Abishai and the fact that he was with David when he had it all, and he stayed with David when he had nothing. And see, that is a true friend. And fair weather friends, when there's nothing that benefits them, they scoot on and move on. And we know the end of this story, that King David ended up getting his kingdom back. And so not only was Abishai there when he had everything, when he lost everything, but he was there to enjoy it when he got it all back. I love that. And see, as Shimei was throwing these rocks and as he was making these accusations, you know what he was trying to do? Is he was trying to drive David's men from him, saying, don't be around him, man. God's not on him. God's against him. God doesn't have a plan. It's done. He's through. Bringing up his past. You're a murderer. You're a scoundrel. He was trying to attack his credibility to push his men away from him. But in reality, what happened is the ones that loved him actually pressed in closer to him. They drew closer instead of being pushed away. And here's the sad thing is that often when people are critical of other people, just like Shimei, David had all of his men around him, but the one that was critical found himself alone and found himself isolated. And why does this happen? Because often when we find ourselves being critical of other people, what we're telling them is that they can't be real around us. Because see, when we're real, we're flawed human beings. We're people that have weaknesses. And when we show that we're critical of others at every turn, and by the way, how do we do that? It's through the words that we speak. If you're critical of other people all the time, dogging them out, man, look what they did. Why did they make that decision? How come you did this? Oh, that's terrible. and we communicate with our mouth that we are critical people, what it does is it causes other people around us to not feel safe. And when people don't feel safe around us, you know what they do? They begin to back away. They begin to retreat. And I'm going to tell you that if you're living with that spirit of criticism inside of your heart, trying to control people, trying to make people perfect, listen, I'm just warning you today that if you continue down that path, you're going to find yourself alone. You're going to find yourself isolated. And some of us, you just need to hear today, like you can be right and still be wrong. That you don't have to be right all the time. You don't have to criticize. You don't have to weigh in with your opinion on everything. Listen, I'm pleading with you today, if that's something that you're dealing with, let God free you of that, okay? Because I don't want you to live alone. I want you to live happy with people around you. Don't push everybody away with the criticisms. But criticism will reveal who is for you. And true friends run in when everybody else is running out. Number 3 is this, is that you have to own it. What am I talking about owning it? Sometimes you're just gonna have to own the criticism that comes your way. Sometimes it's warranted. Sometimes we bring criticism upon ourselves because of our poor decisions or our lack of self-awareness. But listen to what David says here. Let's see what scripture says in 2 Samuel 16:11. It says, then David said to Abishai and to all his servants, my own son is trying to kill me. Doesn't this relative of Saul have even more reason to do so? Leave him alone and let him curse, for the Lord has told him to do it. What a crazy thought. What David is saying is, you know what? Maybe this guy's got a reason to be angry with me. I mean, geez, my own son wants to kill me. That's what we're doing. We're running, guys, from my own son. And of course, I mean, man, like this guy has a reason. He's being logical. He's being reasonable in this moment here. And I think that often we want to quickly dismiss any kind of criticism that comes our way. It's like, no, you know, they're just being salty. No, they're just jealous. They're just angry. But I want to have a heart like King David does right here, where he says, you know what? Maybe my critic's right. I don't know. And maybe God has sent him as a gift to tell me the truth. Because see, we have to understand that criticism often is truth. It's wrapped up. You know, truth is wrapped up in a critique. And it is really a gift to us most often, even though we're like, oh, that just doesn't feel good. That thing stings. It's like getting hit upside the head with a rock, you know, getting dirt thrown in your face like he is right there, getting your stuff exposed publicly as you're calling him a murderer and a scoundrel. It doesn't feel good. And often our first response when criticism comes our way, instead of slowing down to see, is this really God using this person, even though I don't like the package? But is this truth that's being presented to me? Often what we want to do is we want to cut somebody's head off. We want to release our Abishai to go and to chop somebody's head off. We want to start swinging the sword. But see, David's response is different. He doesn't cut off their heads. And his response is something like this: God, did you send Shimei my way to say something to me that those closest around me are unwilling to say? See, often, guys, we surround ourselves with people that sing our praises. We surround ourselves with people that applaud us, people that admire us. And sometimes we're missing out on some really important things in our lives because, as I said, criticism can be truth. It's all wrapped up. It's actually a gift for us because we all have blind spots. I know I do. And we need to ask ourselves, what can I learn from those criticizing me that I can't learn from those that are cheering me on? You know, Vincent Peale, he has a really great quote. He says, the problem with most of us is that we would rather be ruined by praise than saved by criticism. Man, what a crazy thought. A lot of us, we appreciate the praise, like, man, and we're ruined by it. Why? Because praise like that can lead to pride in our lives. Where often what happens with criticism is that it drives us to a place of humility. And see, and pride wants to release our Abishai. Pride wants us to go over there and cut somebody's head off. But humility will slow us down just long enough to see if God is speaking through our critics. We've got to own it. Sometimes, guys, we make mistakes and we have to own our part in it. Sometimes words are said and things are done. And you know what? And somebody is criticized, and rightfully so. And we need to own that because that's how we're going to grow. And that growth is part of slaying that giant of criticism. Number 4 is keep it moving. 2 Samuel 16:13, it says, so David and his men continued down the road. They kept moving. And Shimei kept pace with them on a nearby hillside, cursing and throwing stones and dirt at David. See, one of the things I love about King David is that he was wise and he knew how to prioritize what was most important. See, at this point, he was able to prioritize the fact that Absalom, his son, was in hot pursuit and wanted to kill him and his men. And see, what Shimei was is he was just simply a distraction. He's a guy on the side just talking nonsense, talking crazy, throwing rocks and dirt. And all he was a distraction to him. It was something to try to get his eyes off of what they were really focused on at that moment. They were trying to escape to live. And God was going to reestablish him as king, but they needed to live. And here, this opportunity arose for David to get distracted and to stop them from moving forward and to start looking in a different direction to address this guy that was going nuts on the side of the road. And see what Proverbs 12:16 has to say. It says, a fool is quick-tempered, but a wise person stays calm when insulted. And what you'll see in this passage is that David never addressed Shimei. He never looked his way. He never talked to him. You know, his men were the ones like, hey, man, I will go there and, we'll knuckle up on this guy and cut his head off. And David just said, no, leave him alone. And they just kept moving. They continued down the road. And see, I want you to get this today. That as you move through life, there will be people to your left on hillsides. There will be people to your right, and they'll be speaking into your life, hurling insults, hurling criticisms your way. But if you're going to finish well, you got to keep it moving. You can't get distracted and start like, no, well, that's not true, and answering everything. I mean, David could have been like, no, Saul lost the throne and God gave it to me. You're telling a lie. He could have started defending himself. And how many times do we get distracted by trying to defend ourselves and trying to protect our own reputation and trying to protect our own pride instead of trusting God to do it and just keep moving? Because here's why they needed to keep moving, is that if they had stopped, it would have given time for the enemy to catch them from behind and to kill them and slaughter their dreams. And how many of us is the enemy catching up to us because we keep stopping to entertain the distractions to the left and to the right? It's like God's just called you to do something powerful in his kingdom, and you're still over there arguing with your mom. You're still over there arguing with your neighbor. You're arguing with this person and that person and defending yourself. And you're stopping, and the enemy just keeps catching up and killing that part of your dream. We've got to keep moving. And see, David could have pursued a personal vendetta, and in doing so, he would have jeopardized all of the men's lives to prove a point to Shimei. But what he was saying by keeping it moving is that, guys, your tomorrow matters more to me than yesterday's critic. And we have to live our life like that. Listen, some of you are parents and you're raising your kids. You got to keep moving because the enemy is coming from your rear guard trying to take you out. You cannot afford to stop and get involved in things that you don't need to be involved in. You can't be getting into arguments that you have no part of. Just keep moving. Drown out those voices, silence them. Don't even address them. Just keep going. It's not worth it. Don't get distracted. And here's the fifth one, is that you have to deal with old wounds. See, 2 Samuel 16:12, this is what David said, and this is important. He says, and perhaps the Lord will see that I am being wronged. How many of you have been wronged? How many of you have been hurt out there before? Come on, I think all of us have. Everybody's had an opportunity to be offended. Somebody's wounded you. Somebody's put a knife in your back. Somebody's maybe put a knife in your chest. Just you've gone through some stuff. All of us have. People have betrayed us. People have done things to us that are heinous, things that are just wrong. We've all been wronged. But listen to what David said. The Lord will see that I am being wronged and will bless me because of these curses today. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down today. God hears your critics. but watches how you respond. See, most of us, as I mentioned before, when we're criticized, we release our Abishai and we want heads to roll. We start swinging the sword to take people out. But God hears their words, but he's waiting to see how you and I respond. See, Ecclesiastes 10:4 states, if a ruler's anger rises against you, do not leave your post. Calmness can lay great offenses to rest. See, many of us, as soon as something comes against us, we catch wind or word that somebody has criticized us, we want to leave our post to go over there and release our Abishai to go cut their head off. But God is saying, listen, if you stay where you're at and just keep walking your course, okay, keep your post, he says calmness can lay great offenses to rest. And often we don't realize how much more of a mess we create when we jump out there and start swinging that sword on our own behalf. Instead of allowing God to be our defense, allowing God to be our front guard and our rear guard, we're out there just, I'm just going to hack everybody, man. You're all going to pay. How dare you say that about me? And we create more offense where God's just saying, just man your post. Stay where you're supposed to be at. Be like that war horse with the blinders. Just, bombs are going off. Everything around you is trying to distract you, but just steady. Come on. Just walk your purpose out in a really steady manner, not giving way to this criticism. And criticism is often our greatest test, and how we handle it matters. Because God can bless us even when others are cursing us, my friend. See, people don't understand the whole story. They don't understand everything that's going on around and what God is doing in us and through us. So of course they're going to weigh in with their opinions. But even as they speak out against what we're doing, as long as we're walking in step with God, God can bless it. It doesn't matter what they're saying. So he hears their words, but he watches how we respond. And there's a great warning in this story that actually goes beyond 2 Samuel. It's a warning to you and I that we have to deal with our old wounds. Because the pain of criticism, it's going to want to rear its head. And what we need to do is we need to constantly apply forgiveness to those things. See, some of you have had things that have been said about you, things that have been done to you many, many years ago, and those things are still taking up space in your mind today. It's like they're renters that don't pay. They just get to stay and they're occupying space in your mind. And sometimes you're driving or you're laying in your bed at night and these thoughts pop up out of nowhere and it's just stealing your time because you can't get past it. It just keeps popping up. And when that happens, you have to keep applying forgiveness to those things, because I'm going to tell you, if you don't, you will not finish well. You will not finish your race well if you can't operate in forgiveness, if you can't heal from those old wounds. I want to show you something that's tragic in this story. And it's something that I never saw before until I started studying this. And God was showing me some really cool things. But yet inside I was like, oh my gosh, is this me? God, don't let this be me. But look what happens with David. King David, he's on his deathbed and he's talking to his son Solomon, who is going to take his place. And King David in that moment is saying, there's these people, they've been good to us. I want you to bless them. There's these people, I want you to do this. I want you to take care of them. And he's going down this list and giving him final instructions. And here is King David's final words. And I want you to get this. 1 Kings chapter 2, we're going to go to verse 8 through 10. Tragic story. And this is the fruit of not dealing with old wounds. It says this in verse 8, and remember, you have with you Shimei, son of Gera. There he is. The Benjamite from Bahurim, who called down bitter curses on me that day when I went to, I'm just going to call it Maham. Don't want to jack up that word too bad. And he says, and when he came down to meet me at the Jordan, I swore to him by the Lord, I will not put you to death by the sword. Let me back up real quick. So after that day when he threw the rocks, King David ended up getting his kingdom back. And Shimei ended up meeting him a second time. But this time it was different because he realized that he was king again. And it says that he fell on his face and he begged for mercy. He begged for forgiveness. And King David swore to him, I'm not going to kill you, man. So King David handled it great 2 times. One, he ignored the criticism, walked through it, okay, and had victory. And then he did a great thing by forgiving him and saying, hey, man, water under a bridge. I understand where you're at. Don't worry, I'm not going to hold it against you. But here King David is on his deathbed, and the criticism rolls around in his head again, one final time. And this is what he says in verse 9. But now, do not consider him innocent. You are a man of wisdom. You will know what to do to him. Bring his gray head down to the grave in blood. Then David rested with his ancestors and was buried in the city of David. Do you realize what just happened right here? His very final words before he died is he basically ordered a hit on Shimei. And how many of us have dealt with an offense and we've forgiven them and we put it down only later to pick it back up because we remember the critical words that were spoken. And it did something in our heart and it tweaked us in a wrong way. And I want to challenge you today that you have to deal with the wounds of the past. You can't let those things hang around. And some of you, things have been spoken against you that have caused great insecurities in your life. Even when the time you were little, it's like, oh, you're too heavy, your nose is funny, your eyes are too close or too wide. You hear these things and you're like, man, how is it that I'm in my 30s? How is it that I'm in my 40s, 50s, and 60s? And those words still sting like they did 20, 30 years ago. They're going to want to rise up, and you're going to have to apply forgiveness to that once again and say, you know what? I am not going to let this thing have power in my life. I forgive you because I want to finish well. And there will be another time where those words pop up, things that mom and dad said to you, things that maybe an ex said to you, told you that you weren't good enough, told you that you weren't worth anything. And those words will come up and you're going to want to hate them. You're going to want to let that thing fester on the inside of you and let bitterness arise in you once again. And you're going to have to grab that thing. You're going to say, I'm putting you back down through forgiveness, not picking you up. I've already dealt with you and you will not have control over my life. You have no place in my life now, and you have no place in my future. You were part of my past, so today I declare that you're staying there. Today, guys, I'm challenging you that you have to deal with old wounds. Don't finish like David did. Don't finish like David did. He was a great man, but man, I'm telling you, that is a low note that he ended on. It wasn't a high note. That he had picked up that offense once again. He had picked up that criticism. Just to think, the life that he lived, those were his final words. Was saying, you know what to do with them. One translation says, ensure that he has a bloody death. That was his pain speaking because he didn't completely heal from it. Today, don't let your pain speak for you, my friend. So when it comes to slaying this giant of criticism, know that haters are going to hate. You got to know that criticism will reveal who is for you. What a gift. You're going to have to own some of the things that you've done that have drawn criticism. Sometimes, hey, it's our fault. We got to acknowledge it. Be humble. Hey, I'm sorry, man. I apologize. I was wrong. You got to keep it moving. Don't get distracted on this journey. Don't look to the left. Don't look to the right. You can't always listen to what everybody's saying, because it's going to slow you down. The enemy will catch up and try to steal your dream, try to steal the hope in your heart. And lastly, ensure that if you're going to slay the giant of criticism, you have to deal with old wounds. Don't let your past be part of your present, and certainly don't allow it to be part of your future. God has paid a price for you to be free and delivered of all of that stuff, and to walk with peace and hope and healing in your heart today.